Okay, so today we're looking at section 2.2, direct variation. I'm pretty sure you guys did this in Algebra 1, parts of it, but parts of it you didn't. So when we get to those parts, I'll kind of let you know what the new information is. So we're going to write direct variation equations, and we're also going to interpret them as well. Basically, what you need to know for this section is this little formula right here, y equals k times x. X can't be 0, and that's only when we redo the equation. If x was 0, we wouldn't have anything, so you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. So y equals k times x. So I'm going to put the screen up a little bit so that you can see what k actually stands for. And what it means is it's the ratio of all output input pairs. If you are comparing different ordered pairs or the graphs and the relationship between the numbers, this is how you do it. So do they vary directly? Do they vary inversely? What's the variation? But we're only going to do direct variation today. So the other form of the equation we're going to do in a little bit. So I'm not really going to pay attention to that one right now. I'll go back up to it and then we'll talk about it later. The only difference is if you solve that equation for k instead, you have to divide x to the other side. So as long as you have the first one, you can get to the second one at any time. Okay, so here's a sample. For each function, determine whether y varies directly with x. If so, what's the constant of variation? That's the k part. And then what's the function rule, which means just write it into an equation. So it looks like we have to do a lot, but it's really not too bad. If it varies, we're going to take y divided by x. So remember for that equation right here. Okay, if we're looking for the k, you got to solve the equation for k, do what it says. And it says the y divided by the x. And I'm going to do that for each pair. So 2 divided by 1 is 2. 6 divided by 3 is also 2. 8 divided by 4 is 2. If all of these numbers in this final row are 2, it's a direct variation question, okay? So let's go all the same. I'm going to put yes for direct variation. And then we have to just fill that number in for the k. So it's y equals 2 times x. Okay, so we go back up to that y equals k times x equation. My k is 2 since all of the pairs that we have, the constant of variation is 2, and we just substitute it back in. Now, if 1 or 2 or all 3 of those pairs are different, then it's an automatic no, and then you would not write an equation. So the function rule is the y equals 2x part. The yes is because when we divided the y divided by the x, all of those numbers are the same. So let's do it again for b. I'm going to take 4 divided by 1, which is 4. 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And 11 divided by 3, which is not 4. I just am not going to look it up. So I'm going to go like this and just put not 4. You can do the decimal if you want to. It's not a super big deal. But what happens when one of them is different? It's a no. They are not directly related at all. And that's because, oops, hold on. All of those are different. Let's see, trying to think, did you guys compare things? I think you did in Algebra 1, didn't you? You had to figure out, I'm just trying to think of like last year during COVID when we were at home. I think you guys did something with, this where you had to divide the two. I don't know if you're trying to figure out like a pattern or something. I remember you doing something kind of similar. So it should kind of click a little bit. Let's do the same for these. So we're going to do y divided by x. So negative 21 divided by 3 is negative 7. Negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. And negative 7 divided by 1 is also -7. They're the same, so it's yes. And my function is going to be y equals -7x. So once you know what to do, it doesn't take very long. It's just that you're just doing that division. And then let's do the fourth one as well. 5 divided by 2, 7 divided by 3. So far, those are not the same. And 13 divided by 6. None of those, I think, give you the same decimal. I would probably go with a fraction. Don't round the decimals if you do. Okay, just because sometimes they might give you numbers that are so close that when rounded, they're the same, but when they're not rounded, they're not. So I'm going to say no on this one. And of course, it's because none of those are the same. And this one, we should probably say k equals -7 maybe. But when you plug it in, we kind of know that. Okay. Now, what happens when they give us equations instead? So this is a little bit different, but not bad. When we were trying to figure out the constant of proportionality, we solve for k. When we're trying to figure out if it is a direct variation question, we solve for y. So y equals k times x. Get it in that form. So on this first one, if we solve for y, all we're going to do is divide by 3. So we get y equals 7/3 x. If it fits into that equation perfectly, like y equals k times x, which this does, it does vary directly. So I'm going to put yes. And then k equals 7/3. I generally leave those in improper fraction form. I don't go to decimals or mixed numbers just because it doesn't look as nice. But if there's anything extra besides y equals k times x, then it's no. It just doesn't follow it. There's not anything that, can be done to vary directly. So with the next one, how would we solve for y? Yep, divide each thing by 7. So y equals 2x plus 1. Now, does that follow a y equals k times x format? No, this thing right here is the part that throws it off. So that makes this one no. Doesn't follow y equals k times x. So nothing extra. It has to be just the y on the left, a number times x on the right. And then we'll do a couple more here. Okay. So for the next one, we have x and y on the same side. I'm going to subtract 5x. Divide by 3. So is this one a yes or a no? It's a yes. There's nothing extra. Y is on the left. The k and the x are on the right. So k is equal to -5/3. That's it. The next one, what do you think? Y equals x/9. Nothing extra, right? We can write this in a better way, I guess. Then it looks better. And my k equals 1/9. So if there's ever something where the x is on the top, split it apart, put a 1 there. It's like 1x/9, split the fraction so it's sitting in front of it, then it makes it look like it's the right form. So anybody have any questions so far? Easier today than it was yesterday or the other day? Probably. Okay. Sometimes, like if you notice the information that we were given up here, we have y's and x's. Sometimes they give you information that you have more than just that. You can do these in 2 different ways. They're just picking the easier version here, which I like. You might want to write this equation down. And this is used, it's just a proportion. It's used when you have basically 3 of the 4 pieces of information given. You can use 2 at a time, find your K, plug it back in, solve it again, but it's way easier than that if you use the proportion. So remember, y over x is the same as your K. So the y's are going to be on the top, the x's are going to be on the bottom every single time. Notice the first pair is on the left, second pair is on the right. When you guys have these, they won't ever say this is X1, Y1, whatever. It'll be, you know, they'll be paired together. So when Y equals 9, X is negative 15, those go together. So you're going to grab the Y part, 9, put it on the top. The X part is on the bottom. Then you're going to look at what's left. They're usually going to give you the Y missing, but they don't always have to. It says, what's Y when X is 21? You can have Y2 there, you can have Y1 there, it doesn't really matter. I usually just use Y because normally when you put everything in, there's one variable left. Then it's just a cross multiplying problem. So 21 times 9 divide by negative 15. You don't have to set up equations or anything, just do it simply in your calculator. 9 times 21 divide by negative 15 is negative 12.6. Weird number, but that's what it is. So numbers can be anything here. They can be fractions. You can have decimals. You can have whole numbers, whatever. Okay, so suppose y varies directly as x. Y is 15, x is 3. These two go together. The y is on the top. The x is on the bottom. Then they're going to give us a couple more. What is y? Where does that go, top or bottom? Y goes on the top, so I'm going to put a letter there. And then 12 goes underneath. So y equals 12 times 15 divided by 3. I think that's like 60 or something. So really what I'm looking for in these past 2 questions is what's the setup? What's the answer? You can fill in information in between if you want. You could go 3y equals whatever 15 times 12 is, and then divide by 3. It's exactly the same as just going, oh, my pair of numbers that I have is 15 and 12. I'm going to multiply those 2 and divide by the one that's opposite the variable. It's exactly the same as that, just not writing all of the information down. So I'm just going to scoop back up and circle this too because you need the setup. Okay, so locate the 2 numbers, multiply those, divide by the one that's not in the circle. Now, the last type of question is very similar. It's just in word form instead. It says the commission varies directly with sales. The only thing different is you probably should write down the equation that kind of goes with it first. Then you'll know which letter goes with the Y, which letter goes with the X. So commission varies. I'm going to go C equals directly with sales. So I'm going to go S for sales. So K times S. Whatever you read first, if they say varies after it, is the Y part, and the other part's the X part. So if you kind of compare it to Y equals K times X, that means the Y is the commission and the X is the sales. So what part goes on the top, commission or sales? Commission, because it's paired with the Y. That's all you're looking for. So commission is $85 when the sales are 1,000. It's really easy to go 1,000 over 85. Proportions work that way, but on these, I'd rather that you set them up right so that you know which one goes with which. And then what's the commission? That's the top number again, when the sales are 2,300. So I'm looking for this, and I'm also looking for the answer. So 2,300 times 85 divide by 1,000, $195.50.
So we don't use just like the C equals K times S?
No, you could do that. Like I could show you this in a different way. It takes a lot longer to get to the answer. So you can just watch if you want to. I can do this in another way and get exactly the same answer. So what I can do is, let's see, commission is $85. When the sale is 1,000, you would have to go through and find K first. So I would divide by 1,000. What is that? 0.085. Okay, so K is 0.085. Then what you do is you have to start a new one. So it's going to be C equals 0.085 times X, or no, S, sorry. Commission for 2,300. .085 times 2,300 is $195.50. Do you see where that takes much, much longer?
Yeah.
Still doable. It just takes a lot longer to get to the answer. And if you have three pieces and they're directly proportional, they're always going to be the same. So can do this, don't have to. Can do takes longer. It never lets me change color anymore. I don't really know why. Okay. So let's do one more of those. So the number of calories varies directly with the mass of the cheese. So what is the Y part? Calories or mass? So calories equals K times mass. I'm not going to use a C because we already used a C. So when we're looking at it, your X is the mass of the cheese, your Y is the calories. I'm just looking at the location or where they are in proximity to the equation that's given. So my calories are going to go on the top since they are paired with the Y. Let's see, 50 grams of cheese. Where do I put that? Top or bottom? The what? Bottom. The bottom because it's mass. And then 200 calories would go on the top. How many calories are in 70 grams? Okay, so basically that first equation, you don't really do anything with it other than where do I place these numbers in that proportion that we were given? 200 times 70 divided by 50 would give you your answer. $200 and label it if it's a word problem. 200 calories. Okay, what'd you think?
It could be 200.
Is it not? Did I? Oh,
Yeah.
no, it's not 200. I cleared something off. Okay, 200. Let me see if I have them in the right place. 52. Okay. 200 times 70 divided by 50. 280. Sorry, I didn't have the right thing in my. There, that's better. Are you questioning something?
How did you do that? Because isn't 14,000 divided by 50? You take 200 times 70 and then divide by 50?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So find the numbers that are like diagonal from each other, like those two. And the other one would, like if we wrote it out, we would have like 50C equals 14,000, right? And you would divide by 50. But those work that way like every time. So I always just look at the diagonals, do the ones that are across from each other first, divide by the other number. Okay, so 280 calories. And you can show the work if you want to, but you don't have to. If you want to show it because you've forgotten which ones to multiply, that's all you do. 50 times C and 200 times 70. And, oh, we do have more. Okay, forgot about the graphing ones. These, you guys do not have to probably write down because it's super, super simple. But if you want to, go for it. And there's graph paper in the tray. What's the graph of these? So when they're looking at it, this kind of looks like that, right? So what would my B be when there's nothing there?
1 or 0.
0, yep. So think of it like a normal slope intercept form equation where the B is 0. Okay, so we're gonna draw the little, oops, wow. These graphs are super small. Okay, so the y-intercept is 0. And then from there, how do you do 3/4? Yep. Rise 3, run 4. So you're going to go up 3, right 4. You really only need 2 points if you have something straight. If you don't have something straight, put a couple more on. So I'm going to go one more. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. So really the direct variation part that goes with the x, that k part, that's like your slope is all that it is. So let's do one more. I think that's it. Yeah. So this would be a +0 as well. So again, it starts at 0. And then what's my rise over run when it's just a number? What do I do with it? Over 1. So you're going to go, what's the -2 mean? Down 2, right 1. And I'm going to do that again. And then draw it in. Okay, so down 2, right 1. Now, when would you go left 1? If I put it like this, 2 over -1, that would be up to left 1, correct? So up to left 1 would be the same line anyway, but it depends on where you put your negative. I always put my negative with the top number, so I'm either going up to the right or down to the right every single time. I never do the left one unless I have a graph where I'm running out of space. Then I'll do the opposite and I'll go up and left instead. But otherwise, always up to the right or down to the right, and that's it. So looking at the board, I have 2.2 up there, page 71, 1 to 37 odd, 43 to 47 odd, and 55. Test corrections are due next Thursday, the 29th at 3:30. So I'm counting today, if you want to, tomorrow. Oh, I said Thursday, Tuesday. I can't read. Tuesday, the 29th. So you can do today, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday. If there's a real, big issue with coming in, you can always come in on Fridays because we're here, but you have to make sure that I know you're coming. Don't just pop in whenever because I might be busy doing something else. We always have the open Zooms that day also, 11 to 12 and 1 to 2. So you can always shoot me a message and pop on there if you're struggling with something at home. And then the vocab is due on Friday. Yep.
Does the vocab go like 11:59 or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't do any of my times like at weird times during the day 4. I'll always go till midnight. It makes no difference to me. And I'm not going to stop and correct them at 4 o'clock anyway. So it doesn't matter. They pop in whenever you guys put them in there and that's when I do them. So I won't do a goofy deadline. And with the Friday ones, I'll probably give you the whole weekend where some of the teachers do not, right? So make sure you know the teachers that cut off at a certain time on Friday because I don't. If it's a specific one, I'll definitely tell you, but otherwise you'll have till Sunday to do it because it doesn't really matter all that much to me. Okay. All right. So I'll let you guys work.
When's vocab due?
Vocab Friday night, right before midnight.